Hey everyone, Dr. Ramani here. I'm just opening this video with a question or a riddle. Treat it as it is. So what do you think? Do you think that narcissistic person loved you? Or maybe the question is, were they just obsessed with you? A lot of people walk around saying, did they love me? I'm like, oh, I think it was something different. But let's face it, I've circled this topic dozens of times on this channel. Simply because so many people have questions and repeat questions and want me to hone in on it. But the big question, the million-dollar question in narcissistic relationships is, do they or did they love me? Ever, now, anytime? And the answer is, it's complicated. As I've said over and over again, what they mean by love is very different than what you mean by love. It's tricky because you may want to tell them, there is no way you love me because of how you behaved or what you did after the relationship ended. Your head-scratching question may be, did they ever love me? And it gets even more complicated because you yourself indeed had very strong feelings for them. And at a point in time, their behavior looked and felt and was experienced like love. I was answering this question for someone recently and landed on the uncomfortable answer that while narcissistic people may not view love the way you do, the reason you may have read it as love is that one thing narcissistic people are much better at than love is obsession. I was sitting on a train as I was thinking about this video and thinking about a story someone told me about a long, complex, multi-year relationship that they had with a charismatic, charming, narcissistic person. He was handsome, successful, smart, and she said it was the most sexual relationship she had ever had. And she spent most of the years in that relationship, while she was in that relationship, confused, feeling out of her mind. She, even as she described it to me, she had used the analogy of addiction. She said he had sent her the most beautiful love story she had ever received, and yet the relationship was also riddled with betrayals, lies, shady stuff, and she never knew if she was coming or going. She gave second chances, she tried to play hard to get, and ultimately, when it came time to leave the relationship, she said, I don't even leave, I fled that relationship. And she was so unsettled by all of it. Years in, it almost felt like I almost ghosted this person, something she still is quite rueful about. So I asked her, what was it? If it felt so unsafe and chaotic. We unpacked it. And numerous times she remembered, she said, he told her he loved her. He loved her more than he had ever loved anyone, that they were spiritually destined, that this was a great love story. No one would love her like this again. That she hung the moon, that she was his stars, that she was his everything, that he was born to love her. His love letters were full of poems that he wrote. He would put together musical compilations for her and write songs for her. He would fly to where she had business trips just to have dinner with her. I looked at her and said, based on what you're telling me, that doesn't sound like love. It sounded like obsession. And narcissistic folks are really good at obsession. When he was interested in her, his interest was obsessive. She said that after the relationship ended, many, many months later, she unearthed a box that had been left behind. And in it, she had found printed out emails of letters that he had sent to another woman while they were together, professing exactly the same thing. Love bombing is a form of obsession, that kind of intense focus on one person, theoretically. While it feels good for a minute, obsession is never healthy. Our myths about love are obsessive. I can't think about anybody else. It's you and me against the world. All I need is you. And things like, he sent me a poem every day for 30 days, or he would never ever forget the good morning text ever, or he would text me dozens of times per day. All of that was obsessive. Don't ask me what the threshold is for obsessive. All I know is you'll know it when you see it. And as this lady was telling me her story, it was so clearly obsessive. Listen, obsession is a lighter lift than love. It's a lot easier. Obsession is effort and follow through, the daily text at the same time, the perfect little scavenger hunt on your birthday, the picnic on the beach with tables and chairs and white tablecloths. Obsession is details. Obsession is grand gestures, a strange form of consistency. Love is empathic. There may not be a picnic or a scavenger hunt. Maybe. There might be, but not necessarily. But there's a sense of comfort, security, safety, knowing that this person could listen to you and not judge. Obsession is technicolor and loud and bright. Love is quiet. It's the old sweater, and it's the quiet night at home. I myself assert and believe that love is behavior. Love is listening. Love is remembering. Love is following through on what you said, doing what you said you would do. Love is not judging. Love is not shaming. Love doesn't require endless gratitude and validation and appreciation, but rather it's a mutual recognition you have with another person. Love could be taking out the trash when someone's had a busy day at work, or emptying the dishwasher, because you know that those are the two tasks that someone doesn't like, and doing it at a time when that other person, again, is really busy. Obsession is about sending the person a dozen roses every day while they try to get through that deadline, but not emptying the dishwasher, which is what they really need. And love means not expecting effusive thanks for the dishwasher or the trash, while obsession often requires all of those roses and gestures being noticed. Love may be humoring your slightly drunk friend who is going through a breakup and not complain, or not complain too much about it. Love is watching the really bad TV show that you don't love, but just to have a little hang time with someone you do love. Love is listening to you complain about work without judging or telling you to shut up already. Love is being okay when the birthday gift is a day late. It's the little stuff that lets you feel like you and safe and not judged. It's not about the obsessive details. Oh, I can't believe you were late with my gift. Love is about the feel of it all too. Because the narcissistic person is so singularly focused on particular outcomes, validation, admiration, adoration, even how things look, frankly, what they want back from you is obsession as well. You doing the small things or listening to them may not land as powerfully as you being just as obsessed with them. You telling them that they hung the moon or are the greatest love of this life and all that other stuff. Why do we miss seeing this? Seems clear, right? Because having someone be obsessed with you can be a very powerful feeling. It can often be a correction to not being seen, to not being heard in past relationships. A person coming at you with adoring texts and big sweeping gestures not only can seemingly fill that yearning, but also plays on the existing tropes of fairy tales and even stories for grown-ups like rom-coms and all the rest of that stuff that romanticize stalking and obsession. Even that person I was talking about earlier in the video, she'll say, my parents never saw me, so when obsession happened, it felt like love. So when we're really in it with a narcissistic person, we feel loved, when in fact, what is happening too often is obsessive. And so when the obsession shifts and changes for any reason, and inevitably it will, all narcissistic relationships will always gradually fade into the devaluation stage. At some point, they're not going to be thinking we've hung the moon anymore. And then you doubt if you were ever loved. Maybe that's the wrong conversation. Maybe it isn't about love. It may simply be that obsession is a light that shines too bright, but it is unsustainable. Again, that woman I was talking about, she reflected that all of his obsessive behavior made her obsessive too. She looks back and says, I was obsessive. I would be obsessive about wanting to give him a play-by-play about my day and telling him all this cool stuff I was doing so he would get re-obsessed with me. And she didn't know it was obsession at the time, but she sees now that's what she was doing. She was constantly sending him these emails and spending way too much time thinking about the perfect gift to get him. It wasn't even in my nature to be like this, but I'm empathic, and I think I was trying to mirror him. And it was a detriment to her. It hurt her job, it hurt her other relationships. Now, if you've gone through an experience with a narcissistic relationship where you felt that there was this intense focus on you, and then it just faded, and then you wondered, was I ever loved? Recognize that you may not be pondering the right question. I don't know that we ever get to question someone's definition of love. You may disagree with it, but it's their definition. But if you did experience someone having that kind of obsessive focus, like I said, we can say pretty clearly, I don't know that they loved you, but that you were their obsession. And that, folks, is never healthy. It might feel kind of electric for a minute, but nah. Obsession and love will never be the same thing. Thanks again.